Hey guys, it's Christy and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we are going to be ranking all of the palettes that I tried in 2021. So before we get into it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, and let's get into it. Okay guys, so coming in at number 35 is a palette that no one's going to be surprised about if you have watched my videos before, but this is from Huda Beauty and this is the Caramel Brown Obsessions palette. So I did just do a video very recently giving makeup a second chance, and I used this one again. And something I really wanted to note is that this palette the quality is just so inconsistent. If you look at Huda's larger palettes, the quality is good. This one there's so much fallout, and the mattes in this one are great. The mattes are perfectly fine. It's the shimmers that give me a hard time. There's fallout. There are just a lot of inconsistencies. Some of the shades barely show up, and some of them are just so dry and flaky. I can't make myself love this. When I look at the color story of this one, I immediately think of the Natasha Denona Bronze palette, and I can't help but notice that the quality of that one is 100 times better than this. It's just, I really don't like the quality of this palette, unfortunately. Moving into number 34 is actually a small group of palettes that came out very early this year, and I'm just ranking them all together because it just kind of made sense. So I have the ColourPop Love Struck collection. So these are the 5-pan palettes they came out with early this year. So I believe this was part of their Valentine's collection. So we have Ballad, which is more of the smoky shades. We have Cherish, which is more of the pinky berry tones. Then we have Amore, which is some more purples. There is Crush, which is some warm browns, some warm orangey kind of brown tones. And then there is Lyric, which is some nice brown shades. So of all of them, Lyric is probably my favorite, but I just don't feel like the quality of these was anything special. I was really excited to see these. I thought perhaps they would be a dupe for the Natasha Denona 5-pan palettes, and they're just really not. I just don't think the quality is nearly as good. And I also just didn't feel like the quality of the shades is even up to par with ColourPop's typical formula. So that's why this one ranked a little bit lower. And then some of these have those mattes with glitter inside them, and I just didn't love that. Some of them have pressed glitters, which I think a pressed glitter in a 5-pan palette, sometimes it's nice, but I just think it's kind of unnecessary because you're already limited to the looks you're going to create, and some people really, really hate glitters. So I don't know, I just kind of think they missed the mark with this one. Okay, coming in at number 33 is from Violet Voss, and this is the All of You Forever palette. There's really nothing wrong with the quality of this palette. It's really pretty, it's really nice. I just kind of forget that I have it. If I want some greener tones, I do tend to go for another palette that's going to be in this list. This one, the color story is really, really pretty. It's just not, for whatever reason, it just doesn't call me in. The formula of these is fine. The shades are very buttery, easy to work with. This just isn't my very favorite palette. Again, I don't reach for a ton of greens, but when I do, this isn't the one I reach for the most. However, I will say the quality of this one's great. It's just one I kind of forget that I have, to be honest. Okay, coming in at number 32 is from Charlotte Tilbury, and this is the Cosmic Pearl Quad. So this is a pretty quad. I mean, the packaging is absolutely beautiful, but this was part of her holiday releases for 2021. And what I don't like is that this shade, I really don't like this pressed. It's like a baked gelée formula. It looks very purple in photos. When you get it, it's not purple. It's like a purple, blue, brown shift, which can be a very unflattering color. And not on everybody, but for a lot of people, that can be a very unflattering shade. So I don't know. It just doesn't get me. I was just really disappointed with this one. I like these shades just fine. They're great. It's just that this quad doesn't give you that magical sparkle that I've come to expect from a lot of Charlotte shades, and I just think it was really unnecessary. I don't think it was anything special, especially with this shade being what it is. So I was a little disappointed with this one. The quality is fine. I was just disappointed. Okay, coming at number 31 is from ColourPop, and this is the Making Mauves palette. So this is another one that's fine, but these shades really don't pack a ton of pigment. If you want like a very light mauve tone kind of palette, this might be great for you. I just think that there are mauve palettes that I have in my collection that just pack a lot more punch, so I'm definitely going to reach for those a lot more. I think this is pretty. It's just a lot lighter than I thought, and somehow these three shimmers, they all seem very similar to me. So yeah, this one's just okay. Coming at number 30 is another palette from ColourPop, and I genuinely thought I would like this one much more than I do, and this is the It's a Mood palette. So I genuinely had intentions to pick this one up and do like a 5 looks 1 palette video. But the problem is that I don't know, I was very disappointed. I wasn't feeling very inspired by it. The way they have it laid out is really nice. I like how they've kind of got these brownie tones here, you know, the pinks, the peaches, the purples, the blues, the greens. I like the way they laid it out. It does make it easier to use, especially when you're getting into such a colorful palette, but I know that I'm someone who doesn't use a ton of colorful palettes, so I'm not really sure why I thought this would be such an excellent palette for me. However, I have picked up some really, really great colorful options this year, and I've just had much more fun with them, so I think that's why this one dropped. And again, I had intentions to do a 5 looks 1 palette, and I ended up scrapping that video because I just really didn't like what I was coming out with. I do think there are some creators who have done such pretty looks with this palette, and I'm sure I'll be able to get there. I felt like I had to work really hard to come up with a look I liked, you know, and I just didn't feel inspired when I looked at it. So that's why this one is ranking lower. I'm definitely going to keep playing with it. I do think it's a really fun palette, especially for fall. I didn't have as much fun with it as I did with some of my others. Okay, coming in number 29 is another Charlotte Tilbury palette, and I really feel bad having 2 of her palettes in the bottom, but we are getting into palettes that I still really, really enjoy, but that just didn't wow me as much as some of these other ones did. So this is one of her quads, and this is the Walk of No Shame palette. So this is very pretty. These are very pretty shades, very easy to work with, very cohesive. Again, I do think her quads are very overpriced for what they are, so that's the only thing. I do pick them up. I am a huge Charlotte Tilbury fan, so I do tend to pick up all of her new releases when I can. This color story just doesn't wow me like I wanted to. So it's fine. I'll continue to use it. I just don't create my favorite looks with it, so that's why this one is ranking a little bit lower. Okay, at number 28 we have from Wet n Wild. This is one of their 5-pan color icon palettes, and this one is in Go Commando. So they did reformulate and re-release these, I believe, at the beginning of the year. And the formula is very good. So I have thought Wet n Wild had a great formula before they reformulated, but they've definitely made it even better. These little color icon palettes are very, very good. And this color story is one that surprised me. Looking at it now, it's not my most favorite color story, but when I put it on the eyes, it's beautiful. So I definitely really enjoy this. I'm glad I have this in my collection, and this is definitely one of my favorite drugstore options that I have in my collection. Alright, sitting at number 27 is from ColourPop, and this is the Boudoir Noir palette. So I think this one is beautiful. This was part of their holiday release last year, so I think I got it on their year-end sale. And this is a very pretty palette. We've got some green tones, we've got some golds, some browns. There's this pressed glitter here, which is actually quite pretty. I really like this palette. And I've used it quite a bit actually. I like it a lot. It's a really nice spin on a neutral palette. I think the packaging itself is beautiful. I really like this one. I don't really have anything bad to say about it, except, you know, I don't have anything bad to say about this. I just like some of my other color stories a little bit more. Alright, so number 26 is another Charlotte Tilbury palette, and this is the Flawless Eye Filter in Star Aura. So these were released all the way back in January, and this is a very nice everyday color story. These tones are all of the Baked Gelée formula, so they're really not as pigmented as some of her others, but they're beautiful. They give a really nice soft sparkle to the eye. If you're just looking for something really nice to throw on for every day, maybe you're in an office and you want to tone it down, but you do want little something extra, you can get that with this, and I think you'll really, really enjoy it. I've loved this so much. I'm starting to prefer a lot more range and a lot more depth in my palettes, and with this one you really don't get any depth. So if you're looking to enhance that outer corner or whatever it is you're looking to do, it's going to be a lot harder to do with this one. And also the embossment on the shades wore off very, very quickly because I feel like you need a lot if you want to build these up. So that's the only thing, but otherwise I do love this one. Number 25 is also from ColourPop. We've really got a pattern going here. So this is the Off Melrose palette. This one I really, really like. The color story of this one is so pretty. Everything about this color story I just really enjoy. It does have a pressed glitter, which I don't think I've actually used, but I've tried out the rest of these shades, and this palette is just, it's very beautiful. It's definitely got to be one of my favorites from ColourPop, except for what you see later in this ranking. I will say I've had a really great year for makeup, so from here on out it's all pretty good reviews. It's just that this shade is actually one of those brown, blue, purple shifts, so it's not always the most flattering, but it is a pretty cool shade, and I like this one a lot more than I like the one in the Charlotte Tilbury. So there is that. And what I also like about this palette is sometimes when you look at a palette, you see a certain season. You see it and you think fall, or you think that's a summer palette, or, you know, that's a holiday palette. And some palettes just stick out that way to me. And with this one, I see all year round. And for me, that's a good indicator that I should buy the palette, because most of my very favorite palettes are ones that I don't see a particular season, that I'm just cool to reach for anytime during the year, and this is definitely one of those for me. This is very neutral, but it's very pretty. I love the theme around it. I just really like this one. Okay, coming in number 24 is, I believe, the first Natasha Denona palette of the video, and that is the Mini Metropolis. So this is one that was kind of redundant for me to pick up because I do have the full-size Metropolis. However, I wanted to do a video, so I did pick it up for that purpose. And I also kind of like that if I were to go anywhere and I wanted to, say, bring the Metropolis, this is a great option to do that. I really, really like this one. The quality is excellent. I think this is probably one of her best mini versions yet, simply because it really does reflect the full-size version. However, you can also look at it in that there are 3 shades here that are already in Metropolis, so there's that. However, sometimes her minis are inspired by the larger palettes, and a lot of people end up disappointed because they're just inspired by and they're not really a mini version. So I don't know if that made a lot of sense, but that's kind of where I'm trying to go with that. I do think this is I do think this really embodies the Metropolis palette, and I really like this. I think this is very beautiful. I think it's easy to use, easy to work with. I've really enjoyed this one, and the only reason it's ranking lower is because I do have the full-size Metropolis. I still really, really love this. Coming in number 23 is from Lorac, and this is their Fairy Tale Forest palette. So I've noticed in recent years, Lorac seems to be only releasing a palette around holiday time, which is kind of fun because then you still get the excitement of getting excited for their releases, needing to know what's going on, but as a result, I feel like they kind of fall off the map. So that's just my thoughts, but I picked this up and I really like this. I don't know if I said this is the Fairy Tale Forest. So you get a row of mattes at the top plus 2 on the ends here, and then 2 rows of shimmers. This is a very pretty palette. Lorac mattes, they're definitely very powdery and you will get kick up, but they're very blendable. They're so easy to work with. I love working with Lorac shadows, particularly the mattes. The shimmers, some of them are very dry. I will say that, and that's just not a preference of mine. However, I do think this palette is beautiful. It's easy to work with. You can really go for this every day if you wanted to, so that scores major points with me. I really do like that. If you don't like the layout of this, it does come with the key where you can actually pop them out and move them around if that is your preference. But overall, I think this is a really pretty palette and I really enjoyed working with it, and I will definitely reach for it again. Okay. Sitting at number 22 is one that came out way back in the spring. This is the Natasha Denona Zendo palette. There is, I believe, at least 5 of her cream to powder formula in here, which is definitely a favorite of mine. I love that formula. I think it's so easy to use, and I really, really enjoy this palette in general. So this is a little more inspired by the elements. So you've got your cool tones over here and then your warm kind of earthy tones down here. These are really pretty. I love them. The only thing is that I find I either need to stick to the warm side or the cool tone side, and I can't really make a look doing both. I know some people definitely have and definitely can. I just have a hard time doing that. However, I still really enjoyed this color story. This probably isn't one of her very best palettes, I will say that, but I've overall really enjoyed it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, and I definitely had a lot of fun using this one. Okay, number 21 is from Tarte, and this is their Tartelette Juicy palette. This is another one that was released at the beginning of the year, and there was a bit of a weird thing going on with Tarte and these juicy palettes this year. I feel like they released this one, and then they released a slightly smaller version, and then they released a baby version. It was the weirdest thing. I have no idea what's going on with Tarte and this palette, but I really like this one. It's got that typical Tarte Amazonian clay kind of scent to it, so it's got like that vanilla scent. I love that scent. And then these shades are just really pretty, really easy to use. I will say these are not the most pigmented shadows. I think that this is good for somebody who is maybe a beginner with makeup, or somebody who doesn't want super, super pigmented shadows, who just wants that more light color story. I think this is a great option. This is not going to be good, again, if you're looking for super bold pigment. However, when I look at this palette, I very much think bridal. I think this would be such a pretty bridal palette, and I love reaching for it for that reason, and I am thinking of doing some more bridal makeup looks toward the summer months, so I would definitely include this in one of those. Okay, coming in number 20 is, I believe, a palette that I believe was released in 2020. I only tried it this year, and I really did fall in love with it. This is the ColourPop Stone Cold Fox palette. So this was released, I believe, right after the Glam palette from Natasha Denona, after or before, but anyway, it's got a lot of those very similar shades. These are all cool tone shadows, and it's beautiful. I really like this one. I just feel like some of the shades are kind of redundant, in my honest opinion. I feel like some of these shades are so close that I don't feel it's necessary to be in there. Like this one kind of has some similarities with some of these, and even this one, I just don't like that. However, I really do like this palette. I just think it could have been a lot smaller, or there could have been some more different shades in here. However, it is beautiful. It is easy to use. I've definitely created some looks that I really enjoyed, so I'm not hating on this one. I really do like it, and I'll definitely continue to love this one. Okay, coming in at number 19 is another palette that was released at the beginning of the year, and this is from Too Faced, and this is their Teddy Bear palette. So this one really surprised me. So first of all, it's actually quite a bit smaller than their regular palettes in the tin packaging, and the shades are actually quite small too, with the exception of these two on the ends. However, I really like this one. I really like the color story. I think this is really fun to use. It's a neutral palette, so of course I love it. But then I also feel that there's these two shimmers that are kind of more speckled shimmers, and I don't like them. These two shimmers here in the middle are gorgeous, but these two bigger ones, not so much. that's why this one is ranking lower, just because those two shades just are not my favorite. However, I've overall really enjoyed this one. Okay, coming in at number 18 is from ColourPop, and this is the Mandalorian The Child palette. So this is the one that has the greens that I love. I really enjoy working with this one. Whenever I'm tempted to go for a green, this is the one I go for because it is the most user friendly. I do find greens to be a bit intimidating, but with this one, they're really not. They're so easy to use. I really enjoy this little palette. The quality is phenomenal, and it's the cutest thing. Okay, coming in number 17 is from Anastasia, and this is the Primrose palette. So this palette was a really exciting release this year because this is the first palette of this type from ABH this year. I don't even know if they released anything in 2020. They definitely went through a phase where they released way too many palettes at once. Everyone kind of got sick of them, and they definitely pulled back and then released this for holiday. I think this is really pretty. The only thing I'm, not 100% sold on is these two blushes. I think this blush is really nice. Saddle doesn't really work for me. I thought it might work as a bronzer. It doesn't. But overall, the eyeshadows are beautiful. I will say they are super powdery. So if that bothers you, you won't like this. The shimmers are beautiful. The only comment that I need to make with this palette is that it's really best to just do your eyes first. But overall, I think the color story is beautiful. I think it's very pretty. It's easy to work with, and I have really enjoyed this palette. And I'm definitely glad I picked this up, and I can't wait to see what else they release in this type of packaging. So this was definitely a win this year as well. Coming at number 16, we are once again taking it all the way back to January, and this is from Urban Decay, and this is their Naked Wild West palette. This is also very beautiful. This has a lot of cool tones, but you get some warm tones in here as well. And then you get these pops of color. I really like this. I also even like that this black really isn't black. It's more of like a slate gray kind of shade. I think it's really nice. I've really enjoyed this palette. I haven't really reached for it a lot in the last few months, although I thought I would reach for it a lot in the fall. But overall, I really do enjoy it. I'm definitely planning to pull this out and play with it a lot more often. I really like this. The shimmers are beautiful. The mattes are easy to work with. It's your standard Urban Decay formula. And this is a really great palette. This is definitely one of my favorites from Urban Decay. Okay, coming in number 15 is one that I really haven't spoken about. I don't think I've mentioned this at all here on my channel, but I'm playing with it for the last few months. And I think it is a really great palette to have in your collection. I think it's a staple. And this is from Dominique Cosmetics, and this is the Transitions palette. So this one was actually designed to be used for face or eye, but what I love so much is that maybe you're into all matte looks, this is great. These are all matte shades, and you get such a range here that it's going to complement all skin tones. But I mean, even if you're not into all matte palettes, this is such a great companion palette. For example, I really like to set down my eye primer with a natural shade. Not every palette has that shade. So I'll just reach into this and I'll grab it and it's perfect. Or, any palette that just doesn't have a transition that I want, I can easily find it in here. And for that reason, I really think this is such a staple palette, and I've really enjoyed this, and the formula is wonderful. Okay, coming at number 14 is an older Urban Decay palette, but it was new to me this year, and this is the Naked Honey palette. This is obviously a very warm tone palette, but you can create the prettiest brown neutral looks with this. I am a sucker for a brown neutral look. It's my favorite, and this is gold when it comes to those types of looks. You've got browns, you've got golds, you've got just everything to create those kind of brown neutral looks, and for that reason, this is definitely a favorite in my collection. Okay, we are getting up there. Coming at number 13 is from ColourPop, and that is the That's Taupe palette. So originally I didn't pick this up because I figured with the Stone Cold Fox palette, I really didn't need this, but I like this so much more. This is a beautiful palette, and this shade right here is actually a Super Shock. I love this one. This one is like, this is perfect. if you want to create something cool tone and you don't want to sit there and think about which shade you should use, this is just great. This is perfect. I create looks with this. Anytime I create a look with this palette, I love the way it turns out, and I really love this palette. So if you're looking to pick up something new from ColourPop that is perfect for every day, but also for more glam looks, this is a great option. Okay, coming in at number 12 is also a palette that I haven't spoken about too much, but that I've really started to love, especially over the last few weeks, weirdly enough. So this is from Sigma, and this is their Spicy Eyeshadow Palette. So back in the spring, Sigma released a line of these little travel size 9-pan palettes. So they don't have a mirror, they do just have the clear plastic front and 9 shades. Of course, I picked up the most basic color story, which was the Spicy, so it's all these brown neutral shades that you can glam up with these really beautiful shimmers. I love this palette. I really love this palette. I have just been using this just daily, just to create a basic neutral look, but to just kind of feel more pulled together. This does that. This is such a great palette. I really enjoyed this. The formula is great. The shades are beautiful. There's just enough range that you can change it up and do different things, but also still have a neutral look. I really enjoy this. This is a great palette. It's such a convenient little package. Everything about this I just love. Okay, coming in at number 11 is the newest palette to my collection, and this is the Natasha Denona Mini Biba palette. So I believe my review of this one actually went up on Christmas Eve, so I will leave that link down below. But I really like this one. This definitely pulls more peach, whereas I know the full-size Biba, which I don't have, but I know it definitely pulls a little bit more. It's definitely more just very neutral, whereas this one pulls a little more peach and rosy. So if you don't like that, you might not like this. I do like that. I think it complements my skin tone really well, so I really like this. I think it's beautiful, and what really excites me about this one is that I'm almost positive this is the very first time we've seen her cream to powder formula in a mini. So I love seeing that. And something I also noticed after my last review is that most of her plastic packaging is just basic plastic packaging, but this actually kind of has that soft touch matte feel to it, which I don't know, which I just think is a nice touch. And I also think this shimmer is really nice. The only reason this one isn't ranking super high is because this shade, and this shade looks dark, but when swatched out, it's very similar to these two, and the three of them together are all so similar that I honestly think there are some redundancies in here. However, I do still think it's very beautiful, and I'll definitely use it quite a lot. Okay, we are into the top 10. So coming in at number 10 is from Charlotte Tilbury, and this is the Celestial Pearl palette. So this is the counterpart to the Cosmic Pearl, which ranked much lower. So this one is definitely lighter. This one definitely contains some lighter shades. You only get the one baked gelée formula in here, but it's kind of like a duochrome. It's very pretty. All of these shades are beautiful, and this palette is definitely more of a light wash of color, and it definitely gives you that really special sparkle to the eyes. And for me, that's kind of what I think of when I think of a Charlotte Tilbury quad. She is somebody who doesn't create makeup to be super bold and pigmented and, you know, off the charts. She creates makeup to really enhance our natural features, add that extra little sparkle, and this really does that, and this really embodies that goal. So I really like this. I think this is so pretty. It's so easy to use, so everyday friendly. I really like this. This is definitely one of my favorite holiday purchases this year. Okay, coming at number 9 is a palette I received, must have been back in the summer now, but this is the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. So this is the full-size version. I mentioned the mini earlier. And this is one of her $129 palettes. This is obviously a very large palette. This was released in 2019. However, I did just get to try it this year, and I love this palette. The amount of options and looks that you can actually create with this one are gorgeous. This palette to me really screams holiday, but at the same time, I feel like I'll still be able to enjoy it so much throughout the year because you do have some really nice neutral tones in here. There's still some greens, and I think you can make it work for all year, and it's just so beautiful that I just want to play with it all the time. So for that reason, this one is coming in at number 9. Coming in at number 8 is a palette that was released all the way back in January as well, and this is from Natasha Denona, and this is the Mini Love palette. So this is beautiful. This is the one that kind of started to convince me that I might want to purchase the Midi Love, which I did and I haven't used yet. But this is so beautiful. The purples in here I think are what really sparked my love for purple eyeshadow. Then you have these pinks in here which are also gorgeous, and then this lighter shade here which is it just adds such a beautiful sparkle. It just pulls everything together and makes it look more clean, but also very elegant. I love, love, love this little palette. The packaging is absolutely gorgeous. I love that hot pink, and I've really enjoyed this one, and I'll definitely be digging it out very soon to be doing some Valentine's Day looks. Okay, coming in at number 7 was a holiday release this year, and this is from Pat McGrath. This is the Celestial Odyssey palette. So I decided to buy this because I've been dying to try out one of Pat McGrath's Mothership palettes. However, I'm having a really hard time justifying the price point, and I had a hard time justifying this price point, but trust me, this was worth it. This has 5 different textures from Pat McGrath. The only thing it doesn't have is the Blitz Astral shades that are commonly found in her Mothership palettes. So there is that. However, this palette is so beautiful. The mattes, there is only 4 mattes in this one, so just know that. But they're so easy to work with. They blend together so well. I like to say when I'm working with typically a very expensive eyeshadow formula and it's just working very, very well, I like to say that it kind of makes me feel like the shadows and the shades are doing the work for me, and that's genuinely what I feel with this palette. And the shimmers, the sparkly shimmers, they're amazing. The textures in this palette are absolutely beautiful. I think if you can still get this, I would highly recommend, especially if you're somebody who has been wanting to try out Pat McGrath but just can't justify one of those Mothership palettes. This is a beautiful option. Just know that, and you get a lot of range in here. You get a lot of product. I definitely love this palette. Coming in at number 6 is another holiday release this year, and this is the Charlotte Tilbury Smoky Eyes Are Forever palette. So this is the first 12 pan palette I've picked up from Charlotte Tilbury, and it was 100% worth it. I heard a lot of people say that it doesn't have a lot of range compared to previous years, so that's something to consider, but since this is the first time I've picked up one of these, it was completely new to me, and I love it. I love getting that, you know, just that special sparkle that you get only from Charlotte Tilbury. And I love the way the looks pull together, and they just look so elegant but also just sparkly and beautiful. That's what I get from these. I love that we get some greens in here, you get some very warm tones, you get some very basic looks. I like the way she lays it out. You of course don't have to just stick to that. You can do whatever you want. I know I do. But I highly recommend this. I love it, and to be brutally honest, this is a much better deal than the quads. The quads are so expensive for what they are, and you get 4 shades, whereas for I think around $30 more, you get 8 more shades. So this is definitely the better value if you're looking to pick up something from Charlotte Tilbury. Okay, coming at number 5 is another palette that was not released this year, but I only just got to try out, and this is from Natasha Denona, and this is the Mini Nude palette. So I believe this is one that I picked up for my birthday this year, and I'm so glad I did. This one has gotten a lot of use out of me. I love this palette. Again, it's neutral, it's so easy to use. I look at this and I know this one's going in the crease, I know this one's going in the outer corner, and then I can just mix it up with the shimmers. I love that. I just love how easy it is to use. I can create a look that I really, really like without really thinking about it. The shades are flattering, everything just looks really nice, and it looks like I put in a lot more work than I did. So really love this one. This is definitely my favorite mini from Natasha. Coming at number 4 is another very neutral palette, but this is from Patrick Ta, and this is the Major Dimension eyeshadow palette. So this is the first eyeshadow palette we have seen from Patrick Ta, and he definitely kept in line with that very reflective rose gold packaging, which I really do love. I think it's beautiful, but it is impossible to keep clean. So this palette is very unique. He really had some fun with texture in this palette. So you get some mattes, but then you get some toppers, you get some shimmers. This one is like a creamy shimmer, which is really, really interesting. You can lightly touch it and just get like this light wash, or if you dig in, it almost feels kind of wet, which is weird. But then on the bottom you get these cream shades, which you can use as a base, you can use as a liner, you can really use them however you want to. I like to use them as a base personally. But this is a beautiful palette. The formula is excellent. The way he worked with texture with this one is what really pushes this one to the top. The color story, no, it's not revolutionary. It's not something extra special, but it's the way he played with formula and texture. That's what makes this one special, and again, it's neutral, it's easy to use, it's easy to work with. Love this one. Okay, coming in at number 3 is from Natasha Denona, and this is the Retro palette. So this is a beautiful, beautiful nude mauve based palette. So a lot of people were disappointed that there wasn't the greens in this one. To be honest, I love this. I think this is absolutely perfect. When she does come out with the version that is more green leaning, yeah, I'll definitely pick it up, but I am happy with this. I think this is so pretty. It's so beautiful. On one hand, I can see the fall shades, like those mauvey berry tones, but at the same time, this is a palette I would reach for all year. And it also seems very bridal to me in a lot of ways, so I'm definitely excited to create more based on that as well. It's very blendable, very easy to work with, and overall this palette just makes me feel pretty when I use it. I just feel pretty. So I definitely have to say I love this, and there is a good assortment of her cream to powder formula in here as well, which is also a favorite of mine, so definitely love this palette. I am kind of shocked that it's not in my top 2, but you're about to see why. Okay, coming in at number 2 is a palette that I did not see ranking this high, but this is the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz palette. So this is the first time I have picked up one of the larger palettes from Huda Beauty, and I was especially skeptical because of my number 35 slot was a Huda palette. This is good. This is excellent, excellent quality. The mattes, they're great. The shimmers, beautiful. There is some really interesting textures in here as well. I mean, not counting the Petri dish right here, but counting some of these others, the way the shades reflect and catch light, and they're just amazing. I don't know what kind of magic is in this palette, but I absolutely love it. And I know this one was released closer to holiday, but I think it's honestly going to be so appropriate for spring and summer. And I'm definitely going to be using it a lot within the next few months in particular. I think this is so beautiful. I'm so glad I picked this up. I almost talked myself out of it, but I am so glad I grabbed this one, and absolutely highly recommend. I cannot believe it outranked my Retro palette. Coming in at number 1 is another palette I did not expect to rank so highly. This is not a palette I picked up when it first came out. This is one I got on a Black Friday sale, just because I was curious and it had caught my eye a few times. But this is from ABH Norvina, and this is their Volume 5 palette. I've never picked up one of these giant Norvina palettes before. First of all, they're huge, but second of all, they usually have the brightest colors, the brightest shades I'm just never going to use. But I think I mentioned I was starting to feel a love for purple shadows this year, which was also kind of weird, but kind of exciting at the same time. And this is just so stunning. This is just so stunning. I have played with this so much since I picked it up. This is such a beautiful palette. When I look at this palette, I just feel so inspired. I just want to create. And you know, you don't have to go purple. You can go very pink with this. You can even go kind of brown with this. It's amazing. I love this palette. It just makes me feel so creative, and I just want to stick a brush in and just start blending. I love this palette so much, and the formula is excellent as well. The glittery shades they're absolutely stunning. And for purple shadows to be so well formulated, that's kind of a big deal. Purples are harder to formulate, and they've done it with this. This is so beautiful, so easy to work with. And since I got this palette, this is the one I want to reach for all the time. And that's a big deal to me. I am somebody who has a lot of palettes. I tried out 35 palettes this year. You know, to some that's not a lot, but I definitely do think palettes they're my favorite makeup item. They are my favorite thing to review and pick up. So yes, my channel is definitely very palette heavy. But when a palette for me comes in #1 of the entire year, that says something. And somehow this just did that for me. This made magic in my heart. So absolutely love the Norvina Volume 5 palette, and that is my #1 for the entire year. And that is actually it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below, what is your favorite palette of the year? I love, love, love watching favorite palette of the year videos. It's a lot of work to film them too, so I definitely gained an appreciation for that as well. But thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it so, so much. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload at least 3 new videos every single week. And that is it for me today. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!